Hi, so I'm going to cut it really short, so it's not going to be the whole program. This is one of the parts that I do with grade 8 school. They do freshwater, saltwater ecosystems in their curriculum, and this is one of the presentations that I do for them. And it's called Do You Know Your Watershed? And it's introducing the students to the whole Red Deer watershed. Most of the students that I go to either live in the southern part of the Red Deer River and they're not aware of the mountain part, or they live in Red Deer and they think the Red Deer River only belongs to Red Deer, or they live out to the west and they don't realize how far the Red Deer River goes and how much we influence the water of 3 provinces and a whole ocean. So we'll just skip these first ones because they're boring. The Red Deer River watershed, 49,000 kilometers squared of land. It includes farms, 15 subwatersheds, 724 kilometers of main river. It includes urban areas, recreational areas, wilderness, surface water and groundwater, and of course traditional lands. And the traditional lands are Stony and Blackfoot mostly. The biggest influence traditionally was the Montana Trail, which came up from Montana, and the Blackfoot followed that, followed it across by Fort Normandeau, and that is where the buffalo used to migrate up from Montana, and they migrated up to Buffalo Lake. Imagine that. And there were big buffalo kills up by Buffalo Lake. The Red River carts came through from Manitoba, collected the furs, and took them back up to Fort York Factory in Hudson Bay by Red River cart and Voyageur canoe. And that is how the Europeans got their buffalo for skins. So a watershed is more than the land and the water in an area. It is the impacts and functions that occur within the area, and these may be ecologically, sociologically, or economically influenced. This is the watersheds of Canada. Alberta and Saskatchewan are unique in that we actually send water to the Mississippi and out into the Gulf of Mexico. A lot of our water in the southern part of Alberta, of course, goes through to York Factory and Hudson Bay, but along the way it has a little stop in Manitoba, and so we actually have a big influence on Lake Winnipeg's phosphorus load and nutrient loads. This is our watershed and the 15 subwatersheds. A lot of our watershed is not, the small tributaries are not mountain fed, so there's a lot of springs and wetland fed tributaries. So Panther subwatershed, least impacted, but the impacts that do happen out there are quite evident. So we have a lot of ATV impacts out there. It's very beautiful. The one is the headwaters, that is the Red Deer River up in Skokie Valley. And then Climb Lake, it is the first dam along the river. James subwatershed, we start to get into some agricultural land. In 2005, the river bridge was taken out by the high water. And the headwaters it's not an evident wetland, it's more muskegee, and that's up on the trunk roads out Nordague Way. Raven subwatershed, that is spring fed tributary. So that is the spring up at the top of the headwaters. for that river. And it has a lot of beaver activity along that river. Medicine subwatershed, one of the most impacted with agriculture along our waterways. And the Little Red Deer, this is the lowest tributary. It comes up through Cremona Water Valley, down by Cochrane. I always tell the kids one of those horses is mine. I sold it to Anderson Ranch when we moved. And Blind Man Subwatershed, this is another highly impacted. It's also the river that can be diverted to bring the level of Gull Lake up to its, 898 feet altitude that they want to keep it at. Waskesiu, big impact because of urban. It goes through Red Deer, a lot of linear development, a lot of impervious surfaces, so we see a lot of flooding into the Waskesiu. And then Buffalo Subwatershed, of course, we're into that knob and kettle where a lot of our wetlands were lost. So it used to be in the knob and kettle area. At the bottom of the knobs, there'd be the kettles of wetlands at the bottom, and we filled a lot of those in. So we've lost a lot of wetlands in this area. Three Hills, we're starting to get into the deeper river valley. We're starting to get into our fescue grass, so we're starting to see our wildlife change, and we're starting to see our riparian area being the only area that has a lot of trees. Knee-Hill, we're getting more down into the drylands, and so we're starting to really lose the trees and just have really small pockets of trees. Machi, of course, that's where we have a big reservoir along our waterway, and that reservoir is used by Hannah, Drumheller, and it's used for irrigation. Rosebud, this is where our annual general meeting this spring will take place, and it had a big riparian repair project happen in it in 2011. Berry Subwatershed, this is where they can actually, in the cliffs along the Red Deer River, they can actually do climatic, because of the way that they're laid down. They can actually tell when we had big droughts, when we had big wet, and they can actually do quite a few climate studies there. This is right down into the Badlands. We start to see the hoodoos, and that's where our soft rock has been washed away through erosion and just left the hard rock. And of course then alkali, that is where we start to get into our salt wetlands, and this is where the Red Deer River meets up with the South Saskatchewan. So then urban impacts, of course, we have our waste treatment plants, and a lot of our smaller rural urban centers are going to be linked into the treatment plant in Red Deer eventually. Water treatment plant, quite a few of our small rural urban areas now feed into the Red Deer water treatment plant. So we have Innisfil, Ponoka, Lacombe, and Ponoka and Lacombe are unique in that we take our water from the Red Deer, but we dump all our crap into the Battle. And this aerial photo of Red Deer, you can see the impervious surfaces. You can see why there is very little groundwater recharge in the Red Deer area. Most of it is surface runoff, so the water isn't even staying within the watershed, it's running out and down the river. And storm water systems. getting the kids engaged in best management practices. They're doing the yellowfish road here, painting the yellowfish, trying to get people to quit dumping stuff that shouldn't be going into the stormwater systems into it. Rural areas, we have septic fields. Of course, septic fields can only process so much at a time. If you overload them, they'll collapse. Most of the urban kids have never seen a septic field in their life and have no idea how it works. Shoreline alterations, we see quite a bit where people have put Kentucky bluegrass right down to the lake edges, or they've brought in riprap along the edges and have allowed for the phosphorus and the nutrients to easily flow into the lakes. Wellheads, again, our urban kids they just think that water comes out of the tap. They don't think about where it comes from. Water licenses for diversion, so they're pumping straight off the river. Very few kids understand that water is taken straight from the river to be used in different situations. And of course, forest fires, how they affect the river, we have to take water to fight the fires, but also it opens up for erosion. Then with agriculture, we have manure spreading, fertilizer and pesticide, wetland loss, livestock into our waterways, irrigation. We're now using drip irrigation more than spray irrigation. So with the spray irrigation from when I was a kid, 80% of the water was lost to evaporation, whereas now we're starting to see systems that put more into the crop. And structure location. We always want to put our structures on the highest piece of land, but that also means that then anything that's happening in those structures is filtering down into our water systems. Hydroelectric and flow control dams, weirs and dikes, gravel pits, shaft mining and pit mining along our river. We don't see many shaft mines anymore, but there were quite a few along the southern part of the river at one time. Commercial water use. We have a law in Canada that you can't ship bulk water, but it does not stop Coca-Cola and Pepsi and all those other bottled water companies from bottling up water and sending it to the States. And forestry. Linear development, we have pipelines. Our older pipelines, of course, were only dug down 18 inches. So those are the ones that we are now seeing are breaking because of your frost upheaval and changes in our frost lines. We do have some ferry crossings in the Red Deer River watershed. Hydroelectric cut lines. Our big pipeline running down. Bridges. And of course trails and pathways out, especially in the Panther River area. This is in burnt timber. Fracking, oil spills, tailing ponds. So I go into more depth with these pictures with the students. Talk about with pump jacks how now we push the topsoil back around them, which makes a berm around our pump jacks. It has two benefits. It contains if there is a spill, but it keeps our native soil and plant seeds there for reclamation in the future. And then traditional vertical wells, and then open pit mining. So that's the coal pit that was east of Red Deer. Recreation, we have a lot of RV areas popping up around our lakes. Recreational areas, of course. Boating and marinas have an impact. ATVs, of course, have an impact. And then fishers are some of the recreational impacts. And that's the presentation that we give to the grade 8 students to start them thinking about the watershed that they live in.